Hey everybody, and welcome to January's edition of Board Game Buys. So in this series I take a look at all the board games that I've purchased over the last 30 days or so, just to give you an idea about what's coming up in terms of content and what you can expect. Before I get started on the games, I want to give a shout out to the show's sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk, who are by far the best retailer here in the UK. And if you use my link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. But let's get on with the games, and we're going to start with Chamber of Wonders, which has recently just been fulfilled from Kickstarter. Now, despite the rather large and lavish box here, this is a pretty simple, straightforward filler set collection game, as you are trying to collect cards of different types. And these cards score in different ways. For example, some of them will say, when you play this card, it'll be straight amount of points. Some of them might say you'll get slightly fewer points, but maybe get some money with it. Some of them will score based on how many other sets you've got, all that kind of thing, stuff we've seen before. But the way you acquire these cards is quite interesting, as you are pretty much playing a little worker placement game by going to these mini games here, each represented by these different kind of UK buildings. And they all have a unique mechanism in how you acquire them. Like, for example, some might say pick up 3 cards and do a little pass and draft game. Some might say pick up 1 card at a time, equal to the number of players, and then dish them out accordingly. And so it's something like Biblios, if you're familiar with that game. So it seems like they've cherry-picked bits and bobs from a bunch of different games and added it into one big game here. Now, I have played this one, and I'm going to be a bit coy on my thoughts on it because I'll probably share them in my monthly roundup. I'm not sure if I'll do a full-on review of this one, but I'm not kind of shy to say that this is definitely overproduced, which is kind of typical of a Kickstarter game nowadays. This should be in a box a fraction of the size of this, and this is like a pretty big box here. Loads of these card holders and things, which becomes a bit of a table hog, and certainly, way overdone compared to the actual gameplay itself. So maybe you like that, but that's not normally my kind of thing. But hey, that is Chamber of Wonders, recent Kickstarter fulfillment. Next up, we have District Noir. So I've already covered this in a brief review as part of a set of 3 games, along with Seven Wonders Duel and Trambarn. So this is a 2-player only, very simple card game. Another set collection game, but it has some quite cool mechanisms as you are playing cards from your hand. I think you only have 5 cards, and on your turn you are forced to do one of 2 things. First of which is to play a card in a row, and the second of which is to collect the last 5 cards in that row. And those cards are going to come in different suits like this, numbered from 5 to 8. And each of those cards is going to represent the amount of points you get from those cards as long as you have the majority. So if I had the majority of 8s, I would get 8 points for each one I have. It does have some cool other rules where if you are the first player to collect these 3 buildings, you'll instantly win. So it has this sudden death tension as well. I really like this one. Go to that review if you want to hear more of my thoughts on it. But it's a really nice one, and it's a reprint of a game called Throne and Grail. Next up, we have another game I've already reviewed, actually, a game I was very eager to play. This is Woodcraft by Vladimir Suki and Ross Arnold. Definitely one of my most anticipated games from 2022. Again, I have reviewed it, so if you want more details on what I think about this one, do check out that review. But I really like this one. It's a kind of a contract fulfillment game with some dice mitigation and manipulation as you are trying to fulfill these contracts, and all these contracts require different materials as well as different faces of particularly coloured dice. And you can kind of saw these dice in half, you can stick little pips on and all these kind of things. And it's quite a cool game, has a great game arc to it, as the longer you neglect the contracts that you're playing, the kind of the worse the reward becomes. Lots of track climbing and getting income, very Euro in its approach. But it definitely works well for what it does. I mentioned in my review that these contract fulfillment games generally aren't my cup of tea because they're a bit rinse and repeat and it feels a bit formulaic. But this one definitely did a good job of kind of re-energizing that genre for me. So I'm actually quite excited to play some more of Woodcraft. And next up we have a game here called Lock. So Lock was actually sent to me by the designer, and this is kind of a traditional party word association game, as you are trying to give clues to your teammates. If the clue's water, you might say wet, that kind of thing. But there are 4 different tiers of difficulty here, so you have a lot of tailorability in terms of the gameplay and what you want, because not only can you really change that difficulty level, you can actually play cooperatively or competitively, and because the kind of system here is so versatile, so I love that. It plays in about 15 minutes. It's a game that anybody can play, really. So yeah, I was quite excited to get this into my collection and get it played, because it is so versatile, and it's something I can play with my family and, you know, members of my family who aren't necessarily gamers. So yeah, very traditional game, but it does what it does quite well, and it has a lot of cards here. I mean, you've got like 6,000 words in these cards, and it all comes in a nice box as well. So yeah, a really nice little product there, and I will review this one and release quite a short little video on it, because, you know, I've pretty much explained the game already. So that is Lock. And the next two are probably the ones I'm most intrigued about that I haven't played yet. The first of which is Spirium. And the reason I picked this one up, and the next one I'll be talking about, is because I've been trying to go through the back catalogue of the old Istari games. Now, I think this version here isn't the Istari one, but this actually intrigues me quite a lot. It almost feels like a worker placement game, and I don't know all the details here, but I believe you're putting your meeples in between these cards, these action cards, to take the actions. But I also believe that the majority around these cards, in terms of, you know, the meeples of your colour, will also contribute towards something else. Now, I have watched a playthrough, but I can't remember all the details here. But again, all these games from the mid 2000s they've really been kind of hitting a chord with me, and I've been enjoying them all immensely. So hopefully Spirium's good. Nice little box here as well. So yeah, hopefully it's more of that good stuff that I've come to expect. And the next one, much along the same lines, is Olympus. So again, I have played most of these Istari games. This is one I haven't played yet. This is kind of like a civilization game, one that's pretty accessible from what I know about it. And again, you're trying to get presents on the board and this kind of thing. But I love this idea that you can invest in these technologies to make yourself more efficient at doing things. So I think it's quite Euro, as you'd probably expect from Istari. But tied hand in hand with that civilization feel is something intriguing to me, because, you know, I've said time and time again actually on the channel that I've yet to find the real Civ game for me, and they're normally have too much going on, or if they try to strip too much out of it, I find that the longevity of the game isn't really there. So yeah, hopefully Olympus will fit that perfect niche in between the two. So there we go, that's all the games that I've acquired. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video and are excited to see my thoughts or hear my thoughts on these games, or, you know, give you an idea about what's coming up. If you have enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to my channel. And for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye bye.